Led Zeppelin? I think I can do that. In many ways, Led Zeppelin is like the archetypal classic rock band. They just seem to have it all. Jimmy Page's unforgettable guitar riffs, Robert Plant's screaming vocals, John Bonham's heavy beat, and John Paul Jones gluing it all together. Now, if you've seen my History of Rock 70s episode, you might remember when I said this. I think they're a tiny bit overrated. And that wasn't just to be a contrarian. As much as I like Led Zeppelin, there's always been something holding me back from being their biggest fan. It mostly comes down to Robert Plant's melodies and lyrics, which honestly just don't interest me in the same way as The Who do. This is especially notable on their acoustic numbers. Which is why you're not gonna see songs like Going to California on here, though I recognize its appeal. For me, the earlier you go with this band, the better. Led Zeppelin I is my favorite record of theirs, and one of my favorite records of all time, and it looks like quite a few of my followers agree with me. So I kinda just resigned to focus on their early numbered albums, with one exception. Plus I'll branch out into their later albums and the bonus tracks. I'm sure there's plenty of real Zeppelin fans out there who would include the deepest cuts off of Physical Graffiti and In Through the Outdoor, but remember, this is personal favorites of mine. And to get this out of the way, you're not gonna see Stairway to Heaven on this list.
No Stairway. Denied.
And to be honest, Stairway was originally considered for the bonus tracks, along with a lot of their other most famous songs, but I wanted to highlight other songs instead, showing what a massive output this band has. As with the other playlists, we're formatting this like it's a vinyl record, no longer than 26 minutes aside. So let's get started, and hopefully this list doesn't go over like a Led Zeppelin. And if you're groaning at that joke, that's actually how the name of the band came about, courtesy of Keith Moon. Okay, let's see if I can practice some self-control and not include every song off of Zeppelin I. We're still gonna start off with Good Times, Bad Times. Classic opening, a great riff courtesy of John Paul Jones, not to mention those wicked bass breaks, and one of their more conventional songs. It's got a catchy chorus with some nice harmonies, it's over with in under 3 minutes, and has a short but sweet solo from Page. Right off the bat, Bonzo is the star here. His drum fills just leap off the record, and you can already tell he's developing his iconic style. One of the things I love most about this record is how tight it is. Whereas on later records it sounds like they're arranging on the spot, they rehearsed extensively for this first record, and the effort shows. I'm sure a lot of people want to see Babe I'm Gonna Leave You on this list, and that's a great song too, but I'm gonna skip ahead to Dazed and Confused. I almost relegated this one to the bonus tracks, but listening to it again, I just couldn't leave it off. This is my favorite Robert Plant vocal. He never sang better than he did on this first record. Iconic screaming. If this riff isn't considered the birth of heavy metal, I don't know what is. The breakdown is so ominous, with Page using his trademark bow, creating those ghost-like guitar sounds. Unfortunately, this song is just one example of their controversial copyright infringement. The song was written by Jake Holmes, who used to open for the Yardbirds, which obviously Page was the guitarist for. This is unfortunately going to be a recurring theme on this list, and it's one of the reasons I've always had problems with Zeppelin, but Dazed and Confused is still an incredible arrangement and well worth being on this list. And now we come to my personal favorite Led Zeppelin song, one of my favorite tunes of the late 60s, How Many More Times?
How many more times?
The song rocks so hard. The dynamics are epic. Page starting off with those wah licks before Bonzo's fills hitting the band like a bomb, that bone crunch guitar and bass riff, and Robert coming in with some lyrics lifted off of Howlin' Wolf's How Many More Years. It's almost like an acid rock blues medley, with Albert King's The Hunter, and even an homage to Beck's Bolero, which Page and Jones recorded with Jeff Beck and Keith Moon. This is really my favorite Jimmy Page guitar solo. The tone is so psychedelic, and when they come back in with that main riff, it's one of the most satisfying moments on any rock song. Okay, let's move on from Zeppelin I, which has already taken over half of this first side, and we'll go into Zeppelin II. And speaking of classic Page licks, Heartbreaker... No, I'm talking about the Zeppelin one this time. Heartbreaker is one of rock's most recognizable guitar riffs. It does start to move into an area where I don't consider Plant's melodies to be as strong as the first album, but his vocals are still kick-ass here. We got another iconic solo from Jimmy Page. Admittedly, it's a bit sloppier than on the first album, but that's part of its charm. For now, let's finish off this side of the compilation with the opening to Zeppelin III, the Immigrant song. Written about the Viking invasion of England and also inspired during a tour of Iceland, coming from the land of the ice and snow, this song really leans into the rock gods idea. Of course, Plant's opening scream is one of the most famous in rock history, and it's been parodied by everyone, us included. It's a pretty short song, and it kinda ends abruptly. I almost thought of including the 1972 live version from How the West Was Won, where Page gets to stretch out at the end, but I just prefer Plant's vocals on the studio recording. So that's side 1, but for side 2 of this compilation, we're gonna go back to Zeppelin II, and believe it or not, it's an acoustic number, or at least partially an acoustic number. Despite what I've said, I just love Ramble On. Again, the dynamics are key here. Page's acoustic guitar starts off subtly with JPJ's bass fills complementing it, and Plant begins with some of his Lord of the Rings inspired lyrics. It's actually a funny juxtaposition of lyrics where in the middle of this Tolkien scene, you've got this bluesy romance going on before Gollum and the Evil One interrupt everything. Then Bonham comes in and the chorus makes you want to headbang. Also credit Page for some more wonderful harmonized lead lines. And now we come to the big one, Zeppelin IV.
It's called So-So?
Which I think is kinda overrated.
Kill the monster!
But it's still got some kick-ass songs on it. One of the issues I've always had with the opening song, Black Dog, is that it's really sloppy. Sure, Jones' riff is one of my favorites. We've even done the song in the History of Rock show. But it just sounds like they're still writing the song and they haven't quite solidified a groove yet. Fortunately, when they performed it live on tour, they found their groove and then some. Which is why I include the How the West Was Won version of Black Dog. It's just so much tighter, Bonham just lays into that groove, it's perfect. Also, credit Page for his extended solo, which is just on fire. The one thing I'll give the recorded version over this is Plant's vocals are better, and I like hearing those harmonies as well. I do think Plant sings some good licks live, but this is sadly around the time that his voice was having problems, which he'd eventually have surgery for. We will include a couple studio recordings though, including Rock and Roll. Bonzo got the opening from Little Richard's Keep a Knockin'. And really, let's credit Andy Johns for capturing that heavy drum sound on tape, a very important development in rock and roll recordings. That's also Ian Stewart of the Rolling Stones playing piano. And once again, Page plays some cool licks. Mixed a bit low to my liking, but nonetheless fiery. And you want to talk heavy drum introductions? Let's listen to When the Levee Breaks, originally a Memphis Mini tune. Bonham lays into this groove and never lets up. By capturing the echo of the drums up a staircase with a Beyer M160, it's often been referred to as the greatest drum sound in rock history, and I wouldn't disagree with that.
He started playing it in this thing, and it was this huge expanse.
Even when they come to a full break, you can still hear that groove running through your head, knowing it's going to come back at any minute. Plant plays some really cool harmonica lines, and I love Page's tone here. His slide licks really adding some different lyricism to this dark tune. Seems like the perfect way to end an album, but I've got one more in mind from Houses of the Holy, because we've done 4 already, but now we're steady, and then they said... You get the idea, it's the ocean. It's another classic riff, much like Black Dog, with a bar of 7/8 included. Supposedly the ocean was dedicated to their fans, as the audience looked like a sea of people from their perspective. I love the vocal breakdown sung by Plant and Bonham, and apparently even Jones joins in for some backups at the very end. Close us out with a time change into a swing with some more memorable Page licks, along with Bonham's iconic drum fills, and you got yourself a great way to close this album. So there's our compilation, now let's talk bonus tracks, even get a couple of songs in from their later albums. Back to Zeppelin I, let's include Communication Breakdown, another early heavy metal tune. It's an unforgettable riff, unforgettable chorus, unforgettable solo, and hell, even Jimmy Page sings on it. That's how good this song is. Tangerine from Zeppelin III, which is essentially a reworking of an old Yardbirds track called Knowing That I'm Losing You. I really do like this song. I love the 12-string acoustic and Plant's chorus. It really captures that calm, rustic feel from having taken a songwriting holiday at Bronner Yar. Over the Hills and Far Away from Houses of the Holy also has its roots from the writing retreat at Bronner Yar. It's similar to Stairway in how it starts off with a folk-like acoustic guitar and builds into a heavy rock number with plenty of Page guitar lines to keep you busy and a good vocal hook from Plant. It's certainly not as epic as Stairway, but it makes its point known in a shorter time window, which is commendable. Since I've Been Loving You is also from Zeppelin III. I guess that album's better than I give it credit for. But we're gonna include the version from The Song Remains the Same, an uneven concert film, but this is definitely a highlight, with Plant's sultry vocals and Page's bluesy licks played at breakneck speed. I thought about if I was going to include anything from Physical Graffiti, which I don't get into as much as their earlier albums. Even Kashmir, despite the amazing opening, just doesn't really grab me. But 10 Years Gone feels like it harkens back to the early records. I love the interplay between the band here, and that solo Page plays is beautiful. Credit also some of Plant's more revealing lyrics about a past love. Beautiful tune. And we'll end with Achilles' Last Stand, their crowning achievement from Presence. Written during a tax exile in Morocco, Zeppelin returns to incorporating mythical stories, this time about the Greek hero Achilles. The song is 10 minutes long, but thanks to its fast groove and intriguing melodies, Achilles definitely doesn't feel its length and is truly an epic way to end this playlist. As always, there's a link to listen to this playlist in the description below, and comment on what your favorite Zeppelin songs are. Also, who do you want me to do a compilation of next? Comment below, and as always, stay safe everyone. I'll see you next time.